Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining the first session of our webinar today. The topic of the webinar is the hidden side of health performance, and the objective is to highlight the value of health strategies in shrimp farming with focus on how health solutions promote resilience, reduce the severity of infections, and ultimately contribute to greater performance and profitability. My name is Waldo Nuez. My role is as Head of Aqua Innovation and Customer Success at ADISSEO, and I will be moderating today. I will also join the panel discussion later in the session. We have three experts with us today. Our first expert is Jorge Cuellar, who is a veterinarian certified aquaculture professional with over 35 years of experience in shrimp farming, disease diagnosis, and research. Jorge will cover the topic field experience, how health can improve performance in shrimp. Our second expert is Alex McCall, who is a Global Product Manager for Aquaculture Health and Farm Care at ADISSEO. Alex owns over 20 years of experience in the aquafeed industry with a significant focus on the development and formulation of health solutions. And today he will introduce the ADISSEO Aqua Health portfolio. Our third expert is Itun Chen, who will also join the panel discussion. He's part of the Aqua Innovation and Customer Success team and brings a strong expertise in shrimp pathology and immunology from both academic and industry roles. Unfortunately, Marta Mamora is not with us in this first session, but she will join for the second session. So as you see, the panel combines expertise on the health problems that the shrimp industry is facing today, also on product development and R&D, and on field applications of health solutions. So before we begin, a few housekeeping points. The agenda is very simple. As you can see, we have 1 hour. We will start with the two presentations by Jorge and Alex. This will be around 35 minutes, and this will be followed by a panel discussion of 25 minutes. We would like to address your questions during the panel session, so we encourage you to submit them throughout the webinar, and we will try to address as many as possible. If you encounter any technical issues, please click the help button located at the bottom left of your screen. For any questions, you use the question tab at the bottom right of your screen. You can vote for the question that you are the most interested in, so this question can be selected for the Q&A panel session. And also, if you like to share comments, you can do so via the chat tab, also at the bottom right, okay? So with that, let's begin with our first presentation. Jorge, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Waldo, and welcome for everybody. Please, Waldo, your confirmation with the full screen.
Yes, we can see it. Go ahead, Jorge. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the purpose of this lecture is about experience with field work related to health improvement and disease prevention in shrimp farming. So to begin, we can see that the production of farm shrimp in the world during the last 20 years has passed from 2.5 million tons to 6 million tons last year. So in the last 20 years, more than double has increased the shrimp production. And this is the result of more stocking density, better food, better feed, the introduction of feed additives, better management strategies, and all of that have put for the shrimp healthcare intensification staff. So animals are submitted year by year to more challenges regarding health status and regarding pond management, not only bottom or water management, but all of feed quality, which is the first input of resilience and hardness that we can put in a shrimp when we are submitting them to stress due to high densities and due to farming conditions that are putting productions to go up. This graph presents the increase of the healthcare complexity along 20 years, which has moved to more than 2.5 times compared to year 2005, based on the farming conditions that I have mentioned you, and that now are challenged not only for management strategies or feed elements, but also for diseases like HIV, white spot, or EHP, which are today important challenges for survival and for high production in shrimp farming. As I have mentioned, some of the health challenges that are affecting today shrimp farming in the world includes increase in stocking density. Let's remember that 2 decades before or 3 decades before, the stockings were around 10 to 12 animals per square meter. Today, we're talking about 30, 40, or 50 animals per square meter or more. So this is a very important element to take into account about health challenge in shrimp farming. Feeding, which has to be better and with more precision nutrients and additives in order to solve the health challenges that we are facing in shrimp farming around the world. And others like crop management, water quality, bottom quality, and availability for good quality water, increase of production, which means also to push permanently producers and field personnel to get more kilos per hectare. Infectious diseases, as I mentioned before, AHP, white spot, EHP, and another regular diseases like vibriosis and some other conditions that are permanently in many countries like IHHMV or some parasites. Also, climate changes have affected in some regions the shrimp production, and these climate changes has made also to change the microalgae populations, making in some places that the harmful algae present blooms that are toxic for shrimp, and in some cases have produced very important losses due to poisons. Some strategies that in many countries with shrimp farming have been taken into account for disease prevention is implementing important biosecurity protocols, use post-larvae, not only high-quality post-larvae, but certified post-larvae, in which farmers ask to the hatchery to send a certified hatchery free of infectious diseases, certified PCR test, stable water quality for shrimp farming, which is very important, with parameters that give animals conditions not only for survive, but also for growth, because feeding is not enough if we have not high quality in the water and in the bottom. Stocking densities, it's very important that we have to take into account based on the carrying capacity of the pond, and it is sometimes determined by the oxygen supply that can be increased using aeration, or in some cases increasing high quality water exchange. Shrimp monitoring for health, which is very important to be one step ahead of disease and taking into account clinical signs to take actions to control possible diseases. Using functional nutrition, for example, with not only with high quality feed, but also using feed additives. Today in the market, we have demonstration of the results of the use of feed additives in survival and in growth of animals. So feed additives today, it's a very important tool we have with nutrition to have to strengthen gut health in shrimp farming. Reducing the presence and impact and the production of toxins and stressors, protecting the pathopancreas, also with some kind of additives that are focused on that goal. Support the immune system through the use of strategies in which we can call immunonutrition, that is nutrition focused on giving an animal a complete components in order to have an immune system ready to defend the animal against infection, and also to keep the animal ready to tolerate stress due to climate and the parameter changes in the environmental conditions of the pond. Controlling bacterial load, not only in the water and in the bottom, but also in the gut of the animals through beneficial microbial, which are called probiotics. So we can get the exclusion of the pathogens by using this kind of beneficial bacteria, and also adopting a preventive and comprehensive approach with using biosecurity, pond management, monitoring of the ponds, and nutrition. All of that together in order to reduce the risk of disease. When we talk about feed additives for shrimp farming, we have a list of some of them that can be used and in fact are used today intra-pellet. They are put into the feed in the feed mills, and animals eat it, and along all the cycle, having a better structure, not only for growth, but also for survival and to resist disease and stress conditions of the ponds. They include organic acids, phytobiotics, corm sensing inhibitors, biotoxin binders, probiotics and prebiotics, immune system boosters, and immune stimulants. Also, lately, bile salts, which are very useful for shrimp production. We're going to have a short review of each one of them. Organic acids has the goal of reduce the proliferation of pathogenic bacteria in the gut of the animal through two principal pathways. One, acidifying the gut, so killing bacteria due to low pH, and other, destroying the bacteria wall. So in both cases, we can reduce pathogenic bacteria like Vibrio using organic acids into the feed mill. Among others, we have formic acid, lactic acid, and propionic acid as an example of some organic acids in the market. Phytobiotics are compounds that come from plant, that extracts from plants. They help to modulate intestinal microbiota in shrimp when they are fed permanently with these phytobiotics. They have antioxidant, anti-inflammatory properties for shrimp, stimulate the mechanism of defenses of the animal permanently, and promote growth also. So they are very interesting tools we have also to use in feed as a feed additives. Quorum sensing inhibitors, they are products that disrupt the communication between bacteria. Bacteria need to communicate between them to know when there are a lot of enough amount of bacteria, and then they start producing and releasing toxins. So if we interrupt this communication, bacteria will not know never that they are enough to produce toxins about the amount of bacterial cells, so they're not going to produce toxins. So this is a very useful also additives used today with very good results in many regions, as I mentioned, in feed. This is just to show that bacteria produce the red dots that are called autoinductors. This is the chemicals they produce in a colony. And the more bacteria, you can see in the red side, the more bacteria present, the more autoinductors are also present in the environment. So they need to detect huge amount of autoinductors to know that the amount of cells are enough, and they start producing toxins. And quantum sensing inhibitors inhibits that detection of autoinductors between bacterial cells in a colony. We have also biotoxin binders. They are molecules that capture and immobilize and reduce the availability of toxins in feed. We can have toxins in a shrimp pond from different ways. We can have bacterial toxins, we can have microalgae toxins, and in some cases, we can have toxins from fungi. But what is most frequent in a shrimp pond is to have toxins from microalgae and bacteria. And the real source of the damage in organs and tissues of the shrimp is not the fungi per se, is not the bacteria per se, but it's the toxins that they produce and they release. So these products, biotoxin binders, are additives that catch the toxins and take them out from the gut of the shrimp, so the toxins cannot be absorbed and can't go to the organs to produce damage. We have also probiotics and prebiotics. Probiotics are beneficial microorganisms, can be fungi or can be bacteria. Most frequently in shrimp farming, we use beneficial bacteria. And these probiotics can work at two different levels. One, into the shrimp gut, colonizing the gut and excluding pathogenic bacteria, but competitive exclusion. And the way to promote the growth and proliferation of these beneficial bacteria, probiotics, we can use prebiotics, which are ingredients that stimulate probiotic growth into the shrimp gut. So the combination of both, it's a very important tool that is also today used to help shrimp to have a more efficient digestion and conversion, better health status, and an immune system that is more ready also to be prepared for infections and stress. We can see down a representation of the gut, so we can see bacteria that colonizes, beneficial bacteria that colonizes the gut wall into the lumen, and they produce then some mucus to protect themselves and start keeping the gut free of pathogenic bacteria, which is the goal of these probiotics. Immune system boosters are functional compounds that increase the hardness of the immune system. They include minerals like selenium and zinc, and antioxidant vitamins like vitamin C and vitamin E. All of them into the pellet, so animals can eat it and have a better and strengthened immune response, not only against virus, bacteria, and fungi, but also against environmental stress. They reduce also the oxidative stress and assist the animal to recover after a stress condition due to environmental factors. Immunostimulants are additives different than before, than the immune system boosters. They activate and enhance the shrimp immune system during a challenge with presence of any infection. So this is like a help for the immune system to increase its response against infectious conditions under farming in shrimp ponds. This is just a general representation of the immune system in shrimp, which has cellular immunity on the left with hemocytes and humoral immunity with antimicrobial peptides. It's a complex pattern of defense, but it's very interesting and very active in shrimp under infectious conditions. Another important additive for shrimp farming is composed by the bile acids. They come from mammals and they help very well and under well demonstrated experiences to digest fats that are lipids that are present in the feed, and they can help in the feed meal to replace cholesterol up to 20%. So the lipids, the fats that are in feed, are better digested and better used for hepatopancreas and for the shrimp when we use bile acids. It also helps the hepatopancreas to develop in young animals, to have a better development and a quicker development in young animals. And it also helps to recover the hepatopancreas after a disease condition in which tubules have been affected, for example, due to toxins or any other damage. So it's a very useful tool also into the additives used for shrimp farming. The way bile acids used to improve the lipids digestion is making the lipid droplets smaller. So we can see on the left a regular large lipid droplets, and using bile salts, the droplets are emulsified and they become with a small size. Being from small size droplets are more easy for absorption and using as reserve by the hepatopancreas in the shrimp. So it's a better use of the lipids in the shrimp using bile salts. Comparing livestock industry and shrimp and aquaculture in the world along the last 20 years, we can see in the green line the increase of feed additives in the livestock industry compared with the pink line in shrimp and aquaculture, the increase of feed additives in the last 20 years, which is more than 4 times in the last 20 years, the last 2 decades. It is, and it's increasing. So it demonstrates that aquaculture at the world level is each year demonstrating that the use of feed additives represent better conditions for health control, for disease prevention, and for stimulates production in terms of better survival, better growth, and less feed conversion rate. Around year 2005, the use of antibiotics was around 80% compared to 20% of feed additives. But now, 20 years after, it has changed. So today, the world use of additives has dropped to 30% compared to 70% of additives. So additives in 20 years have moved from 20 to 70% use in aquaculture, shrimp aquaculture. So this is another evidence that feed additives in shrimp farming each time are more known and understood and have shown also better results for shrimp farming regarding to production, regarding to disease prevention, and regarding to not using antibiotics, but instead of that, using as preventive additives in feed. About economical situations, the ROI of using feed additives in shrimp farming in the world is around 3.5 in the Americas, and it's around 4.2 in Asia countries. This difference, for example, in Asia can be related with a less cost of production compared with the Americas, and some other conditions about the protocols and management of ponds that they make Asia ROI to be higher than in the Americas. But nevertheless, it's important that in both cases, the ROI is very interesting when using additives for shrimp farming regarding disease prevention and, in some cases, disease control. It's important to remember that the feed additives for shrimp industry is not curative way of stop diseases, but a preventive way of action. It means that it's more useful to start from the beginning and along all the cycle using feed additives to keep diseases far from shrimp or reduce the impact than to start using feed additives as a treatment when we see animals sick in the pond, because perhaps the results are not going to be as we expect. So it's better to use it as a preventive from the beginning after stocking the ponds. This is an example of the Americas, the ROI in the Americas, which is 20% higher compared with no using additives in ponds that use additives to prevent diseases. And in Asia is around 35% using additives than ponds in which additives are not used. So this is also an important way to show that the feed additives represent a very important tool for strategies tending to control and to prevent diseases in shrimp farming. To finish this presentation, an example of my personal experience in field using feed additives, I can say that in Central America and in South America, it has been demonstrated real benefits of using feed additives with results, permanent and consistent results that show survival with more than 10 percentage points compared with no using feed additives, and a ROI around 3.2, as I have already shown. But it's important also to mention that feed additives are not a magical mixture. They are a tool that has been complemented with high quality nutrition, biosecurity strategies, pond management about water and bottom quality, and disease surveillance to be one step ahead of disease. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jorge, for this general introduction on health management. I think, yeah, you have covered very well different strategies, and very interesting also the return on investment numbers from the practical application experience. So I see only one question, so please, you can add your questions in the question tab on the bottom right, and we will try to address these questions during the panel discussion. Now, let's move to the next presentation. Alex, the floor is yours.
Okay, let me unmute. Thank you, Waldo. Okay, let me put it on full screen mode. Okay, you see it, correct? Do you see it, Waldo?
Not yet. Yes, sorry. Yeah.
Okay,
yes.
okay. Well, thank you everyone, for joining, the webinar, and thank you also Jorge for the nice presentation. Now I'm gonna, go through the campaign that we have, the health campaign, and it's actually the name of the webinar, the hidden side of the health performance. So I will do a brief presentation explaining a bit, what do we mean about this hidden side, and also showing, very few results of the main products that we have, for streams, so that you can have, a glimpse of the results. So, well, at the end, health, it's not just, staying alive. No, it's about, thriving. So how do we measure usually, in the farms, the success? Well, we are checking those survival rates. We are checking the performance, both, growth performance, feed efficiency, and at the end, how much volumes can we harvest? How much yield do we have, from our farm? But it's important that there are three pillars in order to support, those effects, and to unlock the full potential of our streams. And they are, resilience. How resilient are our streams to different stressors? The efficiency. How efficient are they, to keep performing, and also to untap, the potential. So let's try to go, to this untapped potential in order to obtain the maximum yield that we may have. You have seen already, this three pillar, picture regarding the host, pathogen, and environment. Usually they are always related, to the health and to the survival, of the streams. And within this interaction, the healthier animal we have, the better will be at the end, for the final yield. Because there are some, health disruptions that are obvious. You see mortalities, you have clinical signs. But there are also others that are not so obvious, that you don't have still those clinical signs, but they are still, affecting your performance. So in order to explain about, what do we mean regarding, this hidden, side of the farming, we have two different, challenges. We have the visible challenges. These are the ones that you can see, that they become visible. You have already mortalities, you have already those clinical symptoms, and you have, you can count on these losses. So at the end, you are putting a lot of pressure as well on your production side, with all these different stores that we have around. So okay, this is something that you can see, you can evaluate and say, okay, I have a problem. So I'm seeing the challenge. But when you are already having the challenge, the speed of recovery, it's critical. So the faster your streams, can recover, the quicker the performance will go back, to the optimal, in order to protect, the profitability of your farm. This is the thing that, this is the visible, so the thing that you can see. But also we have the hiding impact, and this is what we mentioned with regarding the hiding, effect. Sometimes those health disruptions are not, so visible. Maybe you are not seeing mortalities, maybe you are not seeing white feces, or you are not seeing any symptoms that may raise, a bell and say, okay, when we are having problems. But you already, if you are having, those subclinical, cases, the performance of the animals is already being reduced. Lower growth, lower feed efficiency, lower maybe, mortalities, maybe, very small mortalities, but that is not raising, this an alarm. But you are having this economical loss already in your farm, and at the end, this will make also your production to be more or less predictable, because you are not controlling exactly what is happening in your farm. So, and this is what we mean by not the health, not symptoms, but the performance that you are having, is real. Because, once you have the outbreak, once you have the symptoms, the performance losses have started, a lot in advance. And this is what we mean by, because are, for the hidden, impact that you have. So what do we have in ADISSEO, for, to help, the farmers to cope with all these problems? Well, we have, different solutions. Important to mention that all the solutions that we have in ADISSEO, for aqua, has been developed specifically for aqua. We have, spent, plenty of time and resources developing, the products, doing R&D trials, field validations, in order to corroborate and validate the products, in aqua, and then to deliver to our customers solutions that are, very, strong based, from the scientific, point of view, but also from the, from the field, point of view. How do we do, or how do we approach, this health strategy? Well, we are using, different, combinations of different ingredients, and also we are also combining, different products in order to support the animal health, the resilience, and at the end to support the performance and the maximum yield, of your farm. And how do we do that? Well, we increase the resilience of the shrimps, against, different stressors and also diseases, in order to make the animals more robust, so they can cope better, with these problems. We also improve, different key tissues in order to improve the function of those tissues. We all know that the healthier the tissue that they have, the better for the animal as well. And also not only in terms of the nutrition side and on the growth, but also on the health status of the animal, making those pathogens, less aggressive, to the animal. But also we reduce the impact, from the pathogens, on the productivity. So we can target also, directly, those pathogens in order to release less toxins or to colonize, in a lesser extent, the gut, for example, as Jorge was mentioning in his talk. This is important how, also the pathogens colonize, the gut. So what solution do we have, in ADISSEO specifically, for shrimps that we have, that we want to present today? I'm going to focus on two. We have, SANACORE GM. SANACORE GM, it's a product, it's a combination of different ingredients, containing phytobiotics, organic acid, yeast, etc., where we have found, different synergies between them. And, it's targeting, the gut health, immunity, and the resilience of the animal. So we want to make the animals, stronger, more robust, in order to cope better with those, potential diseases or potential outbreaks. And also we want them to recover, or to be more resilient, to those pathogens. Because as Jorge said, well, additives are not, silver bullets. So they help, to support, the animals to cope better on the performance and to cope better against, potential diseases. But it's not a silver bullet. So it's a tool that we can use to support the business. Here are some of the effects that we have been, demonstrated, in different experiences that we have run. As I mentioned, while we are working on the gut health and on the microbiome, balance, trying to promote the beneficial bacteria and reduce the pathogenic bacteria, supporting the immune competence, of the shrimps, controlling also the disease that we may have, increasing, and improving the resilience and accelerating the recovery after, an outbreak. And at the end, well, it's improving the feed efficiency and the growth performance, and at the end, the profitability of the farm. The second one, it's back BACTI-NIL AQUA. This is a product that it's a combination of different, medium chain and short chain organic acids, and this is mainly focused on the management and control of the pathogenic bacteria itself. So it has, a broad spectrum against, harmful bacteria, pathogenic bacteria. We have checked it, with different analyses, different strains. And we have seen as well that it's not, affecting the beneficial bacteria or the probiotics one. So it's also supporting this gut health and the positive and the healthy microbiome on the gut. And of course, it has, benefits on the survival that you have or that you may have in your facility, and again improving as well the feed efficiency and the productivity of the farm. So now I'm going to show you, a glimpse of some results that we have with both, with both products. We have, a very extensive, data set of results, but of course we don't have so many times. So I'm just focusing on a few of them. In the case of the SANACORE, well, in this trial we wanted to check and focus on the tissue functionality and on the performance of the animal. Here you have the protocol. So we were using small shrimps, and we were feeding SANACORE at 2.3% 3 times a day during 3 weeks. Important to mention that it has been used, or it was used as a prevention. So as Jorge said, we always promote the prevention strategy instead of the corrective strategy. But I will show some data as well comparing both. But in this case, it was okay. Let's use it as a preventive. So since the beginning, what we obtained in terms of performance, we saw an improvement around 7% of the ATG when we were feeding the shrimps with the SANACORE, and also we saw an improvement of the SCR that it was more than that 5%. But we want to understand, okay, the mode of fashion, why we are seeing those improvements on the performance. So we look on the tissue functionality, and here is where we're checking on the different pathways, and we were seeing that there were some pathways that they were upregulated, they were promoted, like different cell metabolism pathways, also some immune competence pathways as well, demonstrating that the shrimps were more prone to be protected because of the immunity, some protein transport, also how the DNA was protected against oxidative stressors, and also how the lipid reserve they were adjusted and having better lipid droplet storage capabilities of the shrimps when they were fed in the SANACORE. So what we can conclude is that while the SANACORE induces tissue-specific responses, we were focusing on the pathopancreas on the intestine, and here's where we saw the higher effects. So all in all, we were able to check and evaluate, okay, why we are seeing those effects on the performance and the efficacy, and it was because at the end the robustness and the health of the animal was upregulated. They were in a better shape. In another trial, in this one, we ran it on the field. In this case, it was in Indonesia, and we were, as I mentioned before, in this case we were checking, okay, what's the difference between using a corrective strategy, so using it once you see a problem or a stressor, or if you feed them before the stressor and then you add on top an extra dose of the product as a corrective. In this case, it was an area and a facility with a quite strong historical challenge times, suffering from rabiosis, white spot, white feces, EHP. So it was a nice cocktail. So we decided to run the trial there and check what would be the effect if we use those two different strategies. What we saw is that when we were using the corrective strategy, yes, we saw a slight improvement on the yield, on the final biomass of the ponds, that it was better than the control. But when we were using the preventive plus the corrective, here's where we see actually the biggest impact of the product itself, that it was actually significantly different from the control. And when we were evaluating also the AOI, because at the end we need to check also the AOI, we saw that even with the corrective we were able to have a better AOI. But when we are using the preventive strategy, this ROI goes a lot higher. And why we have this better ROI? Well, actually, it's mainly because SANACORE is able to reduce this impact. It's improving at the end the final biomass, the final yield that you can have, and it's improving also the fish efficiency. So all in all, then this makes to get a very positive ROI. Also with the SANACORE, I want to illustrate in this slide, it has been in the market for several years. And actually in most of the trials, as I'm representing here, once it's used, we are always having a positive impact on the survival. So that means, as I mentioned before, we are able to make these shrimps more robust and to cope better with different situations. For example, here we have different countries, different regions, different years, and even within the same region, different challenges. So we have white spot, we have EMS, we have vibriosis, and in all of them, once we are using the SANACORE on the prevention as a prevention strategy, we always see an improvement on the survival, and this will be reflected at the end also with the yield that you have on your farm. If we move to the BACT-NIL, In this case, as I mentioned back then, it's mainly focused on the direct effect, against the bacteria. This is a trial done in the lab, and in this case, we were adding, BACT-INIL at 0.3% into the feed and we were feeding it after, the immersion challenge with video paramolecules. So in this one, it was, done more as a corrective strategy instead than a preventive. What we saw at the end on the survival, well, we saw that when we were using BACT-INIL, after the challenge, we were able to improve the survival of the shrimps by, 5 times, the survival compared to the positive control. And also we wanted to evaluate, okay, but why we are seeing this increase on the survival? So we evaluated, apart of other parameters, we evaluated also morphologically the patopancreas. And what we saw is that when we were using BACT-INIL, the patopancreas tubules, were normal. So they were similar as the ones that we have on the negative control. So on the shrimps that they were not challenged with the video paramolecules. And this is more related, not that we are doing or creating the tissue itself, is because we are affecting the pathogens and they are not able to release toxins and then consequently affect the tissues. So we can demonstrate that the BACT-INIL helps to mitigate the impact of the challenge, both on the tissues and consequently on the survival. And last, also another trial. In this case, it was a field trial again, as we did with SANACORE, that was in Mexico. And in this case, we were using BACT-INIL at 0.2%, both also using as a preventive strategy and also as a preventive plus a booster, as we did before with the SANACORE. What we obtained, in this case, well, it was in an extensive farm, so an extensive system. And what we saw is that with both treatments, so both the prevention and the prevention plus the boost dose, in both cases we saw that there was an increase on the harvest that we obtained from the different ponds. The same for the FCR, we saw an improvement on the FCR, and at the end we saw an improvement on the benefit, on the gross profit from the farm. When we evaluated and we calculated the ROI, again we saw that there was improvement with both strategies. It's important to remark that in this case it was we didn't have a disease break, so even having those very high mortality, very high survivals, that they were higher or than 90%. Even with this, we were able to see a benefit when we are using this additive, both on the preventive side and also when we were adding the preventive plus the corrective. As I mentioned, we have a whole data set and a huge data set of results, but I wanted to focus on very few, showing some R&D, some field trials, and also on those two products. So if you need any more clarification, or if you want to see any more data, we can have another meeting, and I will be more than happy to show you the results. So with all, thank you all for attending the webinar.
Thank you, Alex, for the intro on the aqua health portfolio and these small teasers on the different health solutions. So now we'll move into the panel discussion. So I will be selecting a few topics raised by the audience, and we'll use the next 10-15 minutes to discuss them in more depth. So the first question, as it is rated, this question can go to Jorge. Jorge, you already mentioned and showed some numbers on return on investment. What return on investment do you observe under field conditions when using feed additives? Is there any difference by region and culture conditions? You already saw the difference between Americas and Asia. Maybe we can modify the question a little bit and say, like, do you see any difference in return on investments when you apply preventive strategies versus corrective strategies? What's your experience on that?
Thank you, Waldo. The most common experience in the Americas with feed additives is as a preventive. Is using them from the beginning, from the day one after stocking. And it is done with feed additives intra-pellet, directly from the feed mill. So it's a way to ensure that the animal is going to eat it. So based on that, the information that I have presented is based mainly using them as a preventive, which is a ROI of 3.5 for the Americas and around 4.2 for the Asian countries. And perhaps the better result in Asian countries is due to they use a higher stocking density, 150 or 200 compared to 30 or 40 in the Americas. So the more biomass you feed with feed additives, the scale of treatment of animals is also higher. So the results will impact more the ROI. Also, perhaps, as I mentioned, the costs of production in Asia are lower than in the Americas. Asia has around 30 years using feed additives compared to the Americas, which is recent use of feed additives. So perhaps this huge experience in Asia also improves the ROI when we talk about the financial results of using it, and also the use of intensive systems in many places in Asia compared to extensive or semi-intensive in the Americas allows farmers to have a close care and surveillance of health status of the animals.
Okay, thank you. I think that's very well answered. I have here another interesting question. Maybe this can go to Itun. Thank you for the presentation. This is coming from Luis. Jorge actually mentioned about quorum sensing inhibitors. The question here is there any negative effect when we use quorum sensing additive, I get quorum sensing inhibitors on the probiotics?
So this is a good question. So quorum sensing inhibitors they interfere the quorum sensing signals, which many pathogenic bacteria like Vibrio, they use to coordinate the virulence, biofilm formation, and toxin expression. So this is how the pathogenic bacteria they use to communicate each other. So in general, we don't expect to see a strong negative effect on probiotics because quorum sensing, they are not designed to, the quorum sensing inhibitors, QSI, they are not designed to kill bacteria. So the role is more to reduce the specific pathogenic bacteria behaviors rather than just inhibit it or to kill them. So the probiotics, their function is like supporting digestion, competitive, like enzyme production and the microbiome balance. This benefit function, they are not rely on the QS, they are not rely on the quorum sensing. So we said the quorum sensing inhibitor, they mainly reduce the conversation linked to the pathogenic activity. So while allowing the beneficial, the probiotic bacteria to continue their normal function. So I always say this is to interrupt the pathogenic function, but at the same time benefit for the probiotics.
Yeah, actually the probiotics secrete molecules that have quorum sensing inhibition activities. So yeah, I think that's the correct answer. Okay, another interesting question here, maybe more from the application side. Maybe Alex, this can be for you. Which is more effective, incorporating additives at the feed manufacturing plant or self-mixing on the farm?
Okay, well, in terms of efficacy, both are efficient. So at the end, what is important, if you put it on the feed mill, let's say, side, well, usually, the homogeneity of the mixture can be better, and maybe you will have less leaching. But if you do it on farm, as far as you homogenize properly and do the process as it should be, it will be as efficient. Actually, we have done it and we have tested, and we have the different customers that sometimes they are using them on the feed, others they are using them doing top coating at the farm level, and the benefits of the products they are almost the same. So what is important is how do you produce it. So to be sure that you have homogeneous quantity of the product and homogeneously distributed within the feed. But in terms of efficacy, both are efficient. Actually, we have also we have the health range and we have a farm care range. So and I think this farm care range is more focused on at the farm level. So and most of them they are actually mixed on the farm. So no problem for those.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Another question for Jorge. Jorge, this is coming from Weka Davy. Does high quality feed nowadays need to contain feed additives? And also the second part of the question is, when it comes to application of feed additives, does it depend only on the needs and conditions of the farming operation, or there are specific programs or standards that should be followed?
Okay. Today we have different kind of shrimp feed, so the quality changes, but independently of the quality of the feed additives offer specific and functional nutrients for specific functions in shrimp. So feed additives complement the high quality or the regular quality of a regular shrimp feed. So the suggestion and what is today more and more implemented in shrimp farming is to use feed additives not as special, let's say, treatment or something like that in feed, but as a regular protocol of the feed. So from the beginning, many farmers ask the feed mill to introduce such list of feed additives so they can have covered several aspects of disease prevention when they have natural challenges. In the Americas, one of the most important challenges, I think the same in Asia, are bacterial infections, vibriosis, not only in hepatopancreas, but systemic vibriosis, and AHPND and other bacterial diseases, not only bacterial diseases, but mainly bacterial diseases. And this is one way to maintain animals protected or at least partially protected against bacterial challenges compared to animals that do not have feed additives in feed. So what I think, based on the experience that I have observed in many countries in the Americas, is that the using feed additives during all the cycle, from the beginning, intra-pellet, coming from the feed mill, already included. It's a strategy for disease control that is working very well in many countries.
Okay, thank you, Jorge. I don't know if we have more time for more questions because it's 2 minutes to 1 p.m. So that brings us to the end of the webinar, but no worries because we have your questions here. We will answer each of these questions and we will share with you by email, okay? I would like to thank our speakers and also the panelists for the insights and for the participants also for the good questions. I think we can all agree that the webinar today reinforces the important message of prevention in shrimp farming. Corrective health strategies work, but prevention is what really translates into better performance, faster recovery from outbreaks, as Alex mentioned, and also less economical losses and good ROI. Okay, so I would like also to add that if you are interested in learning more, please feel free to contact our teams in the regions who can arrange more detailed follow-ups discussions. So with that, I would like to thank you again for joining us today, and we look forward to welcoming you to future webinars. Okay, good day for now. Thank you.